What if I told you that one of the world's most famous success stories began with a man who was 65 years old, broke, and had been rejected over 1,000 times? For more incredible true stories that will inspire you and improve your English, make sure you subscribe and turn on all notifications so you never miss our next video. It is the story of Colonel Sanders and how he created the famous KFC when he was 65 years old. Let's go back to September 9, 1890. A little boy named Harland David Sanders was born in a small, simple house in Henryville, Indiana, here in the USA. From the very beginning of his life, things were difficult for him. When Harland was just 5 years old, something terrible happened. His father passed away very suddenly. One day he was there, and the next he was gone. This left his mother all alone with 3 young children to care for. Can you imagine that? Imagine being a little 5-year-old boy, waking up one morning and slowly understanding that your father is never coming home again. His mother's heart was broken, of course, but she did not have time to cry. She had to work day and night doing any job she could find just to put food on the table for her children. And do you know what this meant for little Harland? At only 5 years old, he had to become the man of the house. He had to take care of everything. He cooked meals for his family. He looked after his younger brother and sister. He did all of the chores around the house. But something amazing happened during this very difficult time. While cooking for his family, Harland discovered that he loved it. He found a passion for making food. He had no idea then, of course, but this love for cooking would one day change the world. Harland was a smart boy, but life did not give him the chance to stay in school. At the young age of 7, he was already working on a local farm to help his family. By the time he was 10 years old, he was working full-time as a farmhand. It was hard work from morning until night. And can you guess how much he was paid for his work? He earned just $2 a month. That's right, only $2 for a whole month of difficult labor. It is hard for us to imagine how hard his life was. When Harland was 12 years old, his life became even harder. His mother remarried, but his new stepfather was not a kind man. He was abusive and difficult to live with. One day Harland decided he could not stay there any longer. He told himself, "I can't live here anymore." And so, at just 12 years old, he packed his few things and ran away from home. From this point on, his life became a long, difficult journey of trying and failing. He took any job he could find. He worked as a streetcar conductor, helping people get around the city. Then, he worked as a brave firefighter. He worked as a steam engine stoker, shoveling coal into hot, powerful train engines. He even joined the U.S. Army and served his country. After that, he tried being a salesman, selling insurance to people. He tried working on the railroad. He did everything he could think of, but he seemed to fail at everything. Every single time he tried to settle into a job, something would go wrong. He was fired from many jobs. He was broke again and again. By the time he was 40 years old, he looked at his life and realized he had nothing. Finally, at the age of 40, he got a small opportunity. He started running a small petrol station in the state of Kentucky. He thought to himself, "Maybe this is my chance." To make a little extra money, he started cooking and selling fried chicken to the travelers who stopped for gas. And you know what? People loved his chicken. They said it was the best chicken they had ever tasted. Slowly, the news about his delicious chicken started to spread. Word travels fast when food is good. More and more people started coming to his little petrol station, not just for gas, but for his special chicken with its secret recipe. After so many years of failure, it finally looked like his life was changing for the better. He was starting to feel hopeful. But then, something terrible happened. The government decided to build a new modern highway. This new road bypassed his petrol station completely. All the travelers who used to stop at his station now drove on the new highway far away from his business. And just like that, his little business was finished. The customers disappeared. Once again, at an age when many people are settled, he would broke jobless and felt hopeless. But here is the important thing you need to know about Colonel Sanders. He was not an ordinary man. He was a fighter. He had a spirit that refused to be broken. So instead of giving up, he decided he had to start all over again. But life, it seemed, was not finished testing him. After losing his petrol station and his small restaurant, Sanders had to find any work he could just to survive. At 44 years old, he got a job as a cook in a small cafeteria. At 48 years old, he was working as a dishwasher, cleaning other people's dirty plates. By the time he was 50, he was managing a small motel. But every single time he thought he had found some stability, something would go wrong. He would get fired, or he would lose his money, or he would be forced to move to a new town. Nothing seemed to work out for him. He even tried to open another restaurant of his own, but a terrible fire started, and it burned down to the ground. I want you to just imagine this for a moment. You lose your father when you are 5 years old. You are forced to work as a child to help your family. You run away from an unhappy home at 12. You work more than 20 different jobs, and you fail at almost all of them. You start a business at 40, and it fails. You try again, and it literally burns down. Most people would give up by this point. They would say, "This is too hard. Maybe I am just meant to be poor and unhappy." But not Harland Sanders. He refused to believe that he was a failure. Even though his life was a complete mess, there was one special thing he had that nobody else did. It was his secret fried chicken recipe. That recipe was truly special. He knew it, and everyone who tasted his chicken knew it. So an idea began to form in his mind. He thought, instead of trying to open another restaurant all by myself, what if I sell my recipe to other restaurant owners? His idea was that for every piece of his chicken they sold, he would get a small commission, just a few cents. It was a crazy idea at the time. Nobody had ever really done this before. But Sanders had absolutely nothing to lose. He was already broke. He had already failed so many times. What was one more try? So at 62 years old, he took his secret recipe, put on his now famous white suit and tie, and he started traveling across America, knocking on the doors of restaurants. He would go to one restaurant owner, and the owner would laugh in his face. "You want me to pay you for your recipe? No way." He would go to the next restaurant, and they would politely tell him to leave. He would go to the next one, and they would say, "That idea will never work, old man." This happened again and again and again. 1 time, 10 times, 50 times, 100 times. He kept going. Can you imagine the strength it took? At an age when most people are thinking about retiring, he was driving all across the country, often sleeping in his car because he couldn't afford a hotel. He ate cheap meals, and every single day he faced rejection. He heard the word no over and over. But he kept going. He knocked on door after door. He was rejected 1,009 times. Think about that number. 1,009 times people told him no, but he did not stop. And then finally, after all that rejection, one restaurant owner in Utah listened to his idea. He tasted the chicken, and he said, yes. That was all Sanders needed. That one single yes changed everything. Slowly after that first success, another restaurant owner said yes, and then another, and another. His idea was working. People all over the country were starting to taste his chicken, and they loved it. His dream was slowly coming true, one restaurant at a time. And then, at 65 years old, something truly unbelievable happened. A successful businessman saw what Sanders was doing. He saw the potential. He offered to invest his money and help Sanders turn his idea into a real company. Together, they created Kentucky Fried Chicken, or KFC. And just like that, a man who was broke and jobless at 62 had built a multi-million-dollar business by the time he was 65. Can you just imagine that feeling for a moment? One day, you are poor. People don't respect you. People laugh at your ideas. And then, almost overnight, you become the founder of a global brand. This was the beginning of something huge. Colonel Sanders had finally done it. At 65 years old, he had built Kentucky Fried Chicken from nothing. The same man who had lost everything time and time again was now the founder of what would soon become one of the most famous food chains in the entire world. His unique way of frying chicken with his secret blend of 11 herbs and spices was something that nobody had ever tasted before. It was crispy on the outside, juicy on the inside, and full of incredible flavor. Soon, people were lining up outside restaurants just to get a taste of his chicken. Within just a few years, KFC had hundreds of locations all across America. By the time Sanders was 73 years old, KFC had over 600 restaurants. His dream was finally a reality. But with this incredible success came a new big problem. Colonel Sanders was a cook. He was a food person. He loved making delicious chicken. He loved seeing people enjoy his food. But he was not a businessman. He hated dealing with contracts and numbers and all the problems that come with running a huge company. It was all too much for him. He was getting older, and he was tired. He had spent his entire life struggling, and now, even after finally achieving success, he still felt like he had no peace. He was always traveling, trying to manage everything, but he felt like he was losing control. The company was just growing too fast, and he was too old to handle it all by himself. So he made a very big decision. In 1964, at the age of 73, Colonel Sanders decided to sell KFC. He sold his company to a group of investors for $2 million. Now that may not sound like a lot of money today, but back then it was a huge amount. In today's money, it would be worth around $20 million. But here is the shocking part. He sold KFC for just $2 million. But today, the KFC brand is worth over $15 billion. Yes, you heard that right. The brand he created from nothing became worth thousands of times more than what he sold it for. And this decision to sell his company would be something he thought about for the rest of his life. After selling KFC, Colonel Sanders thought he would finally be able to rest and enjoy his life. He had the money. He had the fame. He had the success. But there was a big problem. The new owners of KFC started to change things. To make more profit, they started to reduce the quality of the chicken. They started using cheaper ingredients. And when Sanders saw what was happening to his recipe, he was furious. He felt betrayed. KFC was his life's work. It was his baby. He had suffered for 65 years to build something special, something amazing. And now, in just a few years, he felt these businessmen were ruining it. So even though he had sold the company, he could not stay silent. He started to publicly criticize KFC. He even said in an interview, "That stuff they serve today is not my recipe. It's terrible." But no matter how much he complained, he could not take back the company. It was too late. He had sold it, and now he had to live with that decision. It became his biggest regret. Even after selling KFC, Sanders did not stop working. He was still so passionate about food. So he started another restaurant, a smaller one called Claudia Sanders Dinner House, which he named after his beloved wife. Legally, he could not use the name KFC anymore. Still, he kept traveling the world as the ambassador for KFC, visiting restaurants, meeting his fans, and spreading his incredible story. He became one of the most famous and loved figures in the world. People saw him as a symbol of hard work, of never giving up, and of proving that success has no age limit. But soon, his long and amazing life was coming to an end. In 1980, at the age of 90, Colonel Sanders passed away. His life had been an incredible journey of pain, struggle, failure, and finally, amazing success. He had lived through so much. The loss of his father at 5. Running away from home at 12. Working more than 20 different jobs and failing at most of them. Starting his first real business at 40 and losing it. Going broke at 62 and sleeping in his car. Getting rejected over 1,000 times before finding success. Becoming a millionaire at 73. And regretting the sale of his company, but still leaving behind an empire. Today, KFC has more than 27,000 restaurants in over 150 countries. It is one of the biggest and most recognized food brands in the world. And it all started with one old man who simply refused to give up. So what can we learn from his amazing story? The first lesson is that age is just a number. Colonel Sanders did not become successful until he was in his 60s. This shows us that it is never ever too late to start chasing your dreams. The second lesson is that failure is not the end. Sanders faced rejection after rejection, but instead of giving up, he kept pushing forward. He learned from each failure and used that knowledge to improve his strategy. The third lesson is that persistence pays off. Sanders was rejected 109 times. Most people would have given up long before that, but he kept going, and that incredible perseverance is what led to his success. And finally, follow your passion. Sanders was passionate about cooking and serving delicious food. It was this passion that drove him even during the most difficult and hopeless times in his life. He truly believed in himself and in his product. He refused to let other people's opinions define his future. The story of Colonel Sanders is a perfect example of what can happen when you do not give up. It doesn't matter if you are 25 or 65. You have the power inside you to change your life. You can take control of your future and make your dreams a reality. The only thing standing in your way is whether you choose to keep going or give up when times get tough. So if you are facing struggles right now in your own life, please remember this story. Remember Harland Sanders. You are not alone. You can still achieve your dreams, and no matter how old you are, you still have time to succeed. Take one small step today toward your own dream. Maybe it's starting a small project, or learning a new skill, or simply making a plan for your future. Remember, success is not a straight line. It is a journey with many ups and downs. But if you persist, you will get there. No matter where you are in your life, it is never too late to start again. Thank you for listening today. Stay tuned for more inspiring stories that can help you learn English and change your life. And as always, don't give up.